Leviticus 23. These, of course, are the days that God says are his, not some other day that people appointed these. Okay, and we'll go to verse 26. There's something in this we want to accentuate. We're not going to go through that whole thing, but let's take a look at this. Okay, so Leviticus 23, 26, the Day of Atonement. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, and by the way, these are eternal holy days. They go on forever as long as there are generations of Israel. Those haven't stopped. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, also the 10th day of the 7th month shall be the day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation for you, and you shall afflict your souls. And that word is anah, A-N-A-H. It has a lot of meanings, but one of them is fast. And you shall afflict your souls, and it'll come up more than once in this section. And after offer an offering made by fire to the Lord, and you shall do no work on that same day. And this is a little odd, the way that's phrased, because it means no work. For it is the day of atonement, to make atonement for you before the Lord your God. Payment for you, agreement for you, bonding with God. Anyway, for any person who is not afflicted of soul, on that same day he shall be cut off from his people. That's a severe comment. And any person who does any work on that same day, that person I will destroy from among his people. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings, throughout your generations. So this doesn't stop, right? Verse 32, it shall be to you a Sabbath of solemn rest, and you shall afflict your souls. There it is again. On the 9th day of the month, at evening, from evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. And this is the command that that's why we're here. Want to know why? That's why. Because God said to do it, and he says to fast. That means no food, no water during this day. Anah also has another translation in English, and most people don't know it. It is sing, S-I-N-G. So this is not a sad day. This isn't an affliction day in the sense of being negative about it. This is the day where we don't belong to ourselves or the world. Imagine yourself for a moment. You know, in the old westerns where a mob would form, and they'd have torches, and they'd start to form small groups, and they're going to go get that guy that's in the jail. Marshal, you got to bring him out to us. We're going to hang him, right? Somebody's always the leader of that. There's a leader of that mob, and that mob wasn't necessarily murderous before, but that leader was, and then they all become murderous, and they want blood. They want to hang the guy. The leader of the mob is guilty of desiring murder and promoting it, and so is each individual in the mob who is so influenced. The devil didn't make us do it. He influenced us to do it. To remove from the murderous mob the leader, to take him, replace him with a compassionate creator of life. That's why we're here too. That's what this day is. And we'll see that. The individual mob members, that's humanity. The individual mob members, the non-compassionate, hate-filled, corrupted human beings. Once that mob leader's gone, can make clear decisions about what to do themselves. We are individually responsible for following sin, and we're individually responsible for following righteousness as individuals. One of another. What a funny phrase. Individuals. One of another. This day can be broken up and said that it is at one meant. At one. And when you find that Jesus Christ wants that, it carries a great deal of weight. So how do we learn and how do we practice being individuals, one of another? Well, let's see where it says that. It says that. Romans 12, verse 4. Oh, Romans 12. We're always going to Romans 12. Well, let's go there again. Romans 12, verse 4. This is the place, of course, of the section that talks about presenting ourselves a living sacrifice. But also, it talks about us doing more than being a living sacrifice. And it tells us how we can tell we're doing it. And this is how. Romans 12, verse 4. Let's go there. For as we, by the way, let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about what's going to happen to us if we qualify for the family, work our way through this life, overcome to the very end, and learn to be like Christ? What happened to you? Your individuality, your talents, your personhood is gone. Nope. Romans 12, verse 4. For as we have many members in one body, but all the members do not have the same function. Oh, so there's an explanation here. Verse 5. So we, being many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Now there's a thought to get your head around. Yeah, but I have my own way. Dang it, right? I am my own person. Nope. In the family of God, we share life. God does. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. He's sharing himself. So our first thought is that we're individuals, one of another. The body is made up of individuals. It's not a homogeneous body. It's made up of individuals who have decided to share themselves with the body, like Christ did. Our second thought is that the removal of this murderous mob leader releases the ability to have godly choices. If you take him away, you can think straight. Let's go over to Leviticus 16. He's going to Leviticus 16 on the Day of Atonement. That's new. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of Leviticus 16 because that's a sermon. So Leviticus 16, though, let's just go there. In verse 5, a couple things here to just get settled. By the way, I don't want to speak out of school here, but there's a discussion now that's going around religion. Every year we get a new thing around churches and around religion. And I'll tell you what, if you look it up in a commentary, go take a look. You know that both the goats here in Leviticus 16 are Christ? Did you know that? Okay, well, let's get this settled. Leviticus 16, verse 5. Let's go there. This is, of course, instructions to what to do on the Day of Atonement. And the high priest has got instructions he's supposed to do. Leviticus 16, verse 5. And he shall take from the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. All right, fine. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself. So he's cleansed of sin, symbolically, and make atonement for himself and for his house, meaning his family. And he shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meetings. He doesn't go in, just at the door. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord, the other lot for the scapegoat, which, of course, as you know, is an unfortunate translation. This means goat of departure, or Azazel, right? This is the goat of departure. You know why it's called that. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell, and offer it as a sin offering. So obviously now we're going to kill the goat that the sin is on, that the offering for sin is on that goat. We're going to kill that goat. In verse 10, but the goat which is on the lot fell to be the scapegoat, the goat of departure, shall be presented alive before the Lord. Now this represents Satan. We can see why. To make atonement for it. Presented to the Lord to make atonement for it. See, God has to decide to remove the sin from us. There is a payment that's been made, and God then decides to remove the sin from us. There's a set of things we do with God, not because of God or by God, but with him, that allow him then to judge. And Christ is that judge, whether we did it. And how does he know that? He does it. He actually does it in us. We just do it with him, if you will. Okay, so he's making the human and God atonement choice clear by this symbolic influence of departing, this mob leader, this person, this being that is responsible for causing people to even think about sin, and to let it go as the scapegoat, as the Azazel, the goat of departure, into the wilderness. Now, of course, in Revelation 20, we see that, in fact, that's what happens, that an angel comes down and binds Satan and takes him out for 1,000 years and removes him from us. At which point, humanity can make clear choices, which they can't now. Why can we? Because of the other goat, who is making it possible for us to be paid for. And then there's something else we'll get to in the sermon. He's done two things. Think about this, though. There are two things he's done, but there are actually two major things that have to happen. One, you have to have a sacrifice for sin so that people can go forward without it. And if they sin, they can still go forward because that sin can be forgiven as they repent of it. And you also, the other thing that has to happen is you have to have the one who is basically got the world in bondage. They're blind, they're deaf, they, like we were. They don't hear, they don't see, they don't understand. It's almost impossible to talk to them about it. They ask you, why do you do this? You tell them, oh, that's interesting, yeah. Okay. They don't understand the reason, the purpose for life. And that's because they're blinded. So when that's removed, now we can talk to them, and we will be doing it. Okay. So the second thing is the removal of this leader, this mob murderous leader, allows godly choices. The first one is that we're individuals one of another. Now, this is atonement, so you can kind of guess that's what we're talking about, being at one. How do we know the devil didn't make you do it? How do we know that? James 1. James 1. You don't make yourself do it. Satan doesn't make you do it. But Satan is the influencer on whom all the sins of Israel are placed. And he set out into the desert, into the wilderness, away from humanity. Of course, he's actually just imprisoned for 1,000 years, but this is the point, is that he's removed. Ultimately, he will be removed completely from us. Okay, James 1, how does sin work? How does it work? Well, I heard somebody say one time, Jesus Christ was never tempted. Sorry, he was tempted, like as we are, yet without sin. So he was tempted. Well, then how come he didn't sin if he was tempted? Okay, let's look at that. James 1, verse 14. James 1, 14. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. So your own desires can be, let's think, thirst, juicy steak, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Big glass of cold water with ice, okay. Drawn away. You're being drawn away right now. So what happens is this phrase "drawn away" means you're not on point. You're not seeking the Lord, loving the Lord God with all your heart and mind and soul and strength. You're drawn away. You're being drawn away. Well, keep going. Verse 15. Then, like there's more, then when desire has conceived, I don't see anybody rushing out to get a glass of water. Then when desire has conceived, because it hasn't in here, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. There's a series of things that have to happen. And you don't see any Satan mentioned there at all, do you? What he does is he's the one who tempts. He tempted Christ, Matthew 4. He tempted Christ. Mark, I think it's 2, 3. Or maybe it is 4. He tempted him. In Mark, it looks like he tempted him for all 40 days. In Matthew, it looks like he tempted him at the end of the 40 days. But whatever, right? He didn't make him sin, but he tempted him. The point being, that was a test, in case you hadn't thought about it, and he had gone out into the wilderness to fast for 40 days and 40 nights. He had no food or water with him, and there was none there. He would be too weak to get back, wouldn't he? He had to trust God to get him out of that. Okay. So our first one is individuals, we are of one another. Second one is the removal of this leader of the mob releases individual godly choices, which we have to make all the time. And our third thought here is that we are to share what God's doing. He allows us to share his life. He allows us to share eternity. He allows us to share the kingdom. And he teaches us the sharing of life in his family. He talks like that. He actually says that to us. Deuteronomy 16. Let's go back there for a second. Deuteronomy 16. He talks like this because he says, look, here's what I do. I've been doing this throughout eternity, without beginning. I've been doing this. I've been giving myself, and now I want to teach others how to do it so that will grow, and there will be more giving and more sharing of life. It'll have to be my kind of life, but that's the point. That kind of life is to give life and share it and support it. So you don't downgrade it, you don't kill it, you don't imprison it, you don't put it in bondage like Satan does, and you don't serve yourself. Serve all others. The discussion about serving those who are in corruption and sin is a big one, but that's also what God says too. He loved the world, gave his only begotten son. Pray for your enemies, love your enemies. That's a big discussion. But right now, let's just talk about the fact that what God says is, I intend for you to share your life. And we use phrases like, follow him, lose your life, right? Well, same thing. It's not about losing your life because he'll just replenish it. That's what Romans 12, 1 and 2 is about, Present yourself a living sacrifice. Well, you're living because of him. So he's presenting you again and again. All right. So let's go to Deuteronomy 16. And why would we go on to Deuteronomy 16 on a holy day? I don't know. Well, let's look. It says 3 times in a year, Deuteronomy 16, 3 times in a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses at the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, and at the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. They shall not appear before the Lord empty. This is the Feast of Tabernacles season. That's what this is about. Verse 17. Every man shall give as he is able. Now, God isn't like a tax collector. He's just saying as you're able, and you're the one who decides what that is, according to the blessing of the Lord. So you know what the blessing of the Lord is in your life, and that's nobody else's business. The Lord your God, which he has given you. What's he saying? I am giving you, you know what I'm giving you. According to that, I'm teaching you to do the same thing. The same thing. So that's what we're doing as individuals, members of one another, being responsible, even though it's difficult for us to think of it this way, for the whole world. For if it weren't for the elect's sake, no flesh would be saved. That's really the case. So now as individuals, one of another, with one atonement made possible, one at-what-ment made possible by the removal of Satan's influence in our self-oriented lives, our self-protective, self-willed lives, we're privileged to partake of the way of life of all eternity. It's God's way of sharing life.